Right. Yay! We're live. Okay, so this live stream here, we're starting now at about 3 o'clock, and my intention is to go to about 3:30, about 30 minutes here. And we are here to celebrate the good we experienced during the last season when we focused on processing emotions. And we're here to celebrate all the wonderful changes and goodness we're going to experience during the next season. And so, as we do this, sorry, I'm a little distracted. Okay, so moving forward here, we'll also learn some principles. I see that Brendan has already posted a bajillion questions here that we'll try to get to. And if other people have questions, please add them to the chat as well. One thing I'd like to start with, though, is celebrations. So I want to celebrate all the ways that we've grown during the process emotion season. So take a moment, please, to add to the chat anything you want to share about how you have grown during the last 3 to 4 weeks, particularly how you've grown in connection with emotions. I'll start by sharing a couple of things I know about. For me, one of the important ways I grew during this the emotion season is that I learned that many emotions are too big for me to hold in myself by myself. If you imagine like a small cup of water, and you take some ink and you put it in the water, and it fills up the whole cup, and the whole cup gets going dark. Imagine that you had a whole bunch of ink, and you pouring all the ink into the cup of water, and as you pour the ink into the cup of water, the ink actually spills over, and it goes and it makes a big mess, and it's just messy. It gets all over the place, and you say to yourself, well, I'm not going to pour all my ink in the water again because it makes a big mess. I'm not doing that. That's what it's like when we try to deal with big emotions all by ourselves. Like if I try to deal with big emotions by myself, try to process them by myself, my cup can't hold that much ink. And so it's important to share it with others. Imagine taking the same amount of ink and pouring it in a swimming pool. It would just dissipate through the pool and be gone. And this is why it's so important to process our emotions with others. This can take lots of forms. It can mean going to a friend and sitting with them and talking with someone who's not going to try to give you opinions or judgments, but just listen to you. And then instead of just holding emotions by yourself, the two of you can hold them together. But even two people isn't a lot. And so it's much better to extend yourself and connect to everyone that is. That's when you really have a swimming pool to put your emotions in. And if we want to connect to everyone that is, we connect to Jehovah, whose name is I am. Just I am by itself. He just I am. Who is he? I am everything. Before we were born, everyone made a covenant with Jehovah to be part of him. And then in this life, when Jehovah came to this earth in the form of Jesus Christ, and in Gethsemane and on the cross, when he took everything on him, he reestablished the covenant he'd already made premortally and became everyone again. And so if we want to have a swimming pool to dilute the ink of emotions in, we connect to Jesus And then Jesus becomes the portal to connect to every spirit and every intelligence that is. And then our emotions can be processed by everyone instead of trying to hold it in ourselves. Everyone who follows Jesus, even whether they make covenant primordially or in this life, whether they call him Jesus or call him by another name, even if they just call him love or hope or goodness, anyone who's following that has a promise to mourn with those that mourn. And thus, their energy can receive the emotions of others and it can spread out. And all of Mother Earth, whose Mother Earth is just all of us in Jesus, all of Mother Earth can hold the emotions. So one person doesn't have to hold the emotions by themselves. And this is why it's so powerful to take your emotions to Jesus to process them. And if you're with someone who needs to process emotions, rather than try to just hold their emotions, just you and them, you can, whether you say you're doing this or not, you can use your intention in a prayer to connect yourself with Jesus, and then from Jesus to everyone. And then all the emotions can be processed through everyone. Instead of too often we try to process emotions, like if you imagine a computer, because computers process informations, we try to process emotions just being one component of a computer. Like if I have a computer in front of me, if I open it up, it's full of a circuit board, full of lots of little tiny, some of them microscopic little pieces that work together. And I'm just one of those pieces trying to process something. It doesn't work. If I connect to the whole computer and process emotions, add the whole computer together, then it works. So that's what I learned this season that was so powerful to me. And I invite you to celebrate with me at what I learned. So I'm going to say what I learned, and I invite everyone to say huzzah with me. So I learned to process my emotions with everyone instead of by myself. Huzzah! Brendan says, I've learned how to accept and feel what's going on inside of me in a more healthy way in the last season. That's wonderful, Brendan. Huzzah! Jamie says, I've been really trying to listen well when people share their feelings with me instead of shutting them down so I can move on. It's really hard, but it's helped me to slow down and to be more present. Huzzah! If anyone else wants to share what they've learned this season, go ahead, this last emotion season, go ahead and throw it in the chat and we will take a moment to celebrate it. In the meantime, while we're waiting for people to do that, I would like to answer some of Brendan's questions that he has in the chat. And Brendan specifically says that it's okay if I don't answer his questions, that he's okay with the idea that some of these questions might not be answered. I might not answer all of them. I'm gonna read all of them and then see what I want to do with it, because some of these might just be questions actually better rather than something for us to talk about now. They might actually be questions to invite us to think about all season long. So let's see what these questions are. He says, what can acting with balance mean to you when it comes to Zion? Is the word everyone balanced? And what does that mean for the Love Everyone season to you? How can you tell if you have too much of something compared to something else? Is there a place for a lack of balance? Those are really good questions. And I have opinions about them. But for whatever reason, my intuition tells me at this time to not answer those, but to leave those questions hanging for you, Brendan, and for anyone else listening to consider this season. I feel like as you discover I feel confident you will discover the answers to these questions. And as you do, it'll mean something special to you when it comes directly to you. I will say this about balance, though. The next season moving to is Act with Balance after process emotions, and that's very intentional, right? We go from our emotions to action. We learn to process our emotions to get our inward state in a place where we're ready to act. Sometimes when we try to change our actions, and this is sometimes when we try to change our actions without having processed our emotions, it just becomes a big we're kicking against the pricks because our emotional state is such that trying to act differently, like this is like, for example, with an addiction, right? You can use discipline as much as you want to like try to have a more balanced relationship with something you're addicted to, whether addicted to food or addicted to thinking too much or addicted to stress or addicted to cigarettes or addicted to alcohol or addicted to whatever you're addicted to, addicting to staying up late, whatever that action you're addicted to is, trying to change the action without first processing the emotion can be like an uphill battle that just feels impossible to do. So these seasons go in order, I think, for a reason. At the same time, sometimes if we process the emotions, but then don't intentionally pick to change the action, then without the change of action, we might find ourselves in a situation where we just invite those same trapped emotions again. So these are both important; they go together. And we talk about changing actions. We're talking about seeking balance. We want to have a balance. We don't want too much of either extreme. We want to be in that balanced place. And in this way, I think this does relate to love. The heart is a place of balance. The heart, so we think of the heart chakra as the chakra of love and the chakra of balance. It balances the things above and below in the chakra system, and the heart chakra is the place where love is, because love creates balance between everyone. It brings people together in a balanced way. So there's definitely a connection in balance and love. I'm going to read Jamie's comment here. She says, and I appreciate all the comments. Having comments in the chat really makes these go well. So please throw your comments in there. She says, balance is something I'm trying to figure out because I often feel overwhelmed. I think that stress or overwhelm is a message our bodies are giving us to reevaluate and take a look at our priorities. For example, I was encouraged to take a month off of everything that wasn't necessary. It's given me a chance to look at stuck emotions about those things and to evaluate if I want to have those things back in my life or if it's time to just let things go. I'm halfway through this experiment and it's been really interesting to learn about myself. What a good season for this, I just realized. Yeah, sometimes balance comes from steering really hard the other way. So sometimes if there's something that we're like doing excessively, it can be good to practice doing it not at all in order to experience the other extreme and then come to the balance. But sometimes we get stuck on the other extreme. Let me give an example of this. When I was young and I was in high school, I loved to play role play games a lot, and it was obsessive. I remember sitting there in all my classes at school, and I would intentionally take easy classes so that I'd get the work done really, really fast. So I wasn't in school. I was not challenging myself like I could, I was embracing mediocrity. I realized in my intellectual pursuits when I look back, I would intentionally take really easy classes and then get the work done as fast as I can to make as much time as possible to plan out role play games. And I would put so much time into it, and it's all I thought about, like all day long, but I wasn't forced to think of anything else. And it was excessive. And I could feel the imbalance in myself. And then I went to the opposite extreme, and I didn't play them at all. And then a whole bunch of, and that went for years because I associated playing those kinds of games with this like extreme thing that I had experienced. And so a bunch of time passed, and then I got to be an adult, and then I started playing role play games again and discovered a lot of joy in it. And as I did that and I started looking at myself and looking at some of my belief systems, I discovered that as a teenager, I had developed a belief system which was anything I think is fun is wrong. That experience with role play games and other experience as a teenager led me to believe that if I want to follow Christ and be his disciple, that I have to let go of anything I think is fun and I should only do things that are unfun. I believed that was what discipleship is. And that's not discipleship. Discipleship is balance. It's being disciplined. Disciple and discipline are the same root. It's being disciplined. It's avoiding extremes that harm you and other people. And where that place is in that spectrum between the two extremes is different for different people at different times of life. I'm really grateful to have learned that lesson. And I was able to repent. Repent means, the Greek word for repent means to change your mind or change your perspective. I was able to repent and change my mind and change my perspective and make a more balanced place where I play role play games and it's a way I connect with other people, in a way I exercise my talents and my imagination, my creativity, and in a way I relax and find in a more balanced way instead of just being like, well, it's fun, so it's bad, which is the lesson I picked up as a teenager. And I'm grateful that I had all that time to believe that false thing, because believing that for all those years and then healing from that brings me a lot of joy. I appreciate the state I'm in because of all the time I spent doing something else. So I'm really grateful that's the way my life went. It makes now more wonderful for me. Will says, every season, I usually at least figure out one way a season connects to a different season. Yes, that is true. They connect together. The seasons can be depicted as a Metatron's cube, which is 13 circles that you connect the center of every circle with a line, the center of every other circle. That's a way to show the seasons. And that symbol of that is that every season connects to all the others. And you really can't understand any of them by itself. They have to be understood as a system. The real point of having seasons is just to let focus on one at a time so you can master them, because it feels overwhelming to try to do all at once. But as you focus at one at a time, you see that one as sort of like the leading one, or like the lead dog, while connecting to all the others. So you're likely to have experiences with many virtues every season. It's just which one's leading out and which one are you focusing on understanding. What else do we want to talk about today? Having balance comes down to boundaries. That's what balance is. So there's different extremes we can go to, like on a spectrum. And then somewhere along that extreme, we say, I'm only going to go this far and this far. And that creates a boundary that has been set. And if we stay in that boundary, then our relationships with ourselves, our relationships with God, our relationships with each other are in a good place because we stayed within the bounds, the boundaries. Boundaries create balance. A lot of times when we talk about setting boundaries, we talk about that in relation with other people. So we'll say something like, oh, I need to set a boundary so that person doesn't hurt me. I need to set a boundary so that I don't, go too far with giving myself to others. Like we talk about boundaries in terms of our relationships with others and not letting it get to some kind of extreme. And that's exactly what we're talking about here. And there are also boundaries like with ourselves and with our relationships with different parts of our lives, right? So I can set a boundary for myself by saying, at this time every night I go to bed. I don't stay up later. And by keeping that boundary, I have a healthy relationship with sleep and my body, and a healthy relationship with my body. And I love my body because my body is well rested. My body, feels good, and I have a healthy relationship with life because I don't go through life feeling tired or resentful. So acting with balance is all about setting boundaries that keep relationships good, to keep relationships healthy, whether it's relationships with other people, relationships with the earth, relationships with God, relationship with ourselves, relationship with parts of ourselves, any kind of relationship. Now, sometimes we cross boundaries in a way that causes harm to other people. And sometimes we have habits where we keep crossing the same boundary over and over and over again. And it keeps causing harm over and over and over again. And other people can help us notice when we do that if they are honest with us, if they're honest and kind, they can tell us when we've crossed boundaries for them, and then we can figure out, and then we can use our own agency to adjust to set to to align our boundaries with what's going to help other people feel better about things, and we can negotiate those boundaries back and forth. Um, and so I invite us to this season to pay attention to when other people communicate things to us that can help us know where to set boundaries and express gratitude, and know that in the end, hearing that from people and choosing to follow it is using agency. Um, it can be tempting to think that if someone communicates something to me and then I act in it, then I set boundaries in accordance to what they communicate to me. It can be tempting to think that in doing that, I'm giving up my agency to them. But that's not true. I'm using my own agency to make my own choices about my own boundaries that I'm going to set in order to honor them because I love them. And then we see that three virtues: agency, love, and boundary, and that acting with balance have all come together. Again, the virtues are connected. Um, Please keep throwing in the chat any questions or comments. I'm going to move into a meditation now. So I invite you all to close your eyes with me and to visualize some boundaries. Be aware of like curtains or fences that represent boundaries. And then you're aware of some places where your own personal fences or curtains are imbalanced. You're aware of some place, like you're looking at the shape of the fences or curtains you have around yourself, the boundaries you have around yourself, and you notice that some of the boundaries you have are shaped in a way that leads to imbalance. I invite you to just pay attention to that. Pay attention to that visual and see what you notice. And ask your subconscious, say, in what part of my life are my boundaries imbalanced? Ask that to yourself now and see what answer comes to you. Hmm. If you need to repeat this exercise later, you're not getting a clear answer right now, and you need to process some emotions first and then come back to this exercise later, that's wonderful. You can, after this live stream, you could process some emotions and get in a place where you're ready to get the answer, and then visualize this again. Visualize the boundaries that are in balance and ask, where in my life is this imbalance? Maybe though, you've gotten the answer already. And if you have, I invite you to be aware of a jar. And this jar represents your intention. And anything that goes in this jar is an intention that will be fulfilled. You see yourself, you write a little note that says, I am going to adjust my boundaries by, and you write down what you're going to do on this note. And you put the note in the jar, and then you screw the lid in the jar and seal it up. And you put the jar inside your heart so that your heart center of your body will make sure that this happens. And the message of the intention goes up through your throat and your third eye and your crown and down to your solar plexus and your sacral chakra, down to your root and down into the earth and up into heaven. And you are a column of energy that is going to change this boundary this season. It simply is going to happen. In fact, it already has happened. And you're aware of yourself in your own body about a month from now with a new boundary in place. And you're aware, and pay attention to the details of the new boundary. How does your body feel with this new boundary in place? How are your relationships different with this new boundary in place? How do you walk differently, breathe differently, eat differently, sleep differently with this boundary in place? Smile because you're celebrating the change that you have already experienced in the future. And open your eyes with me and give me a big huzzah to celebrate the change you've already experienced in the future. Huzzah! That's all I have for the live stream for today. I'm going to go ahead and end this live stream now. If you have additional questions you wanted to ask that you didn't get to, please use whatever contact info you want to contact me. If nothing else, go to 13seasons.org and go to the contact us link on there and just send me a message and let me know if you have any additional questions, and I'll either send you a direct message back or maybe record, or if it feels appropriate, record some kind of video for a larger audience, or send an email to a larger audience to address the question. And that's all. I love you all. Balance and love sure go together. Enjoy your best self this season and every season. Goodbye.